Hello everyone. So the webinar today is to talk about Microsoft legal applications and how you can use those applications to improve your internal processes. So just looking at an agenda for today, what we'll cover. So we'll do some brief introductions of myself and Michael. We'll do a little bit of a background of Pinnacle. Some people may know Pinnacle, some people may not. We'll touch on market trends and some reoccurring themes that we're seeing at our clients. We'll do a bit of an interactive demo and show some examples of things that we've done. We'll touch on a couple of specific use cases. So these are projects that we've done recently with clients around the Power Platform. We'll have a look at what's next for Pinnacle and what's next for the Microsoft Legal Apps team at Pinnacle. And then we'll end with some Q&A. So just moving on. So some quick introductions. So myself is Sam Sheldon, Principal Consultant in FP&A at Pinnacle. I'm relatively new to Pinnacle. I've only been here for about 3 months or so, but previously worked at Big Hand as a product manager, and then at DW Reporting before that, which was a BI specific consultancy and legal. And I'm joined today by Michael.
Thanks, Sam. So I'm Michael Turner, and I'm the head of business intelligence at Pinnacle. I've been at Pinnacle for around 8 years since the formation of the team. So I was the first member of the BI team, and I've worked in legal systems for probably 25 years. I started off life at Elite actually, but worked in a lot of large law firms around the UK mainly, and ended up at Pinnacle around 8 years ago to form the business intelligence team at Pinnacle. So I'm going to give you a bit of background on Pinnacle and what we do. For those who don't know us, some on the call will have dealings with, but others won't know us. We've been around for about 13 years, and we focus on providing services to law firms. Initially, it was around 3E and Intap, but we've grown into other products. So we'll talk about our partnerships. There's a slide with our partnerships, which we'll distribute later, following on from the call. But we specialize in law firm systems and processes and data, and we work with Elite and Intap with one of their key services providers. There are about 140 professionals at Pinnacle, and we're mainly across the UK and the US and Canada. We've got some staff in Europe, and we've recently opened an office in Sydney, Australia. So we've got global coverage, and we work from our clients' point of view. We work with about 65% of the AM Law 100 and UK Top 100. So we work with most of the largest law firms in the world. We work with a variety of different law firms across all the different groupings across the globe, really. So we work with a lot of law firms. So just moving on, our work sits across consulting. As I said, initially we started off as service providers, and some of our clients are on the screen under our consulting services. And we, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, we started to move into managed services because we were doing carrying out consulting services for a lot of the clients who wanted to retain us for more ongoing and kind of fixed arrangements where we could support their 3E and Intap products and other solutions. So we've agreed managed services agreements with quite a lot of the firms that we work with, and that offering's growing, and that enables clients to lean on us when they want to carry out developments. They get our expert teams to step in and help them work through those developments with them, and we support their systems as well. From a software point of view, we've grown into software, and we provide software solutions through an acquisition we made a few years ago with a company called Enable. We're a software house, and they provide software solutions to the law firms in that box on the right. and most of that software is geared around pitching for work. There's a product called Pitch Perfect. We've got other solutions that we have developed around managing time entry for users. It's not a time entry system, but it kind of housekeeps time entry so that if people don't enter their time, they get encouraged to do so systematically. And as I said, our partners are elite, mainly Elite, ILTA, Microsoft, the ones across the bottom of the page there. So talking about our Microsoft Legal Apps team specifically, we were formed out of the Power BI team that I headed up and about 8 years ago, and that team was formed to support Elite's data insight solution, which is a free solution that's powered by Power BI. And we, through that work, we gained expert knowledge of Power BI, and we've implemented about 130 projects, Power BI projects to date. So there'd be data warehouses and Power BI solutions that across the client base. So we work with the largest firms in the world to some of the smaller firms, sort of 100 timekeeper firms mainly across the US and Europe and Canada. And so we've got good experience in that. What we noticed a few years ago, probably about 2 years ago, clients were coming to us and saying, okay, we've got Power BI, we've got that under control. We understand how we need to use that and what we need to do with it, but we want to do some stuff with the information that is in the Power BI reports. And so we've got a range of different developments that we've delivered for firms across the Power BI solution and partner solutions in the Power Platform. I don't know if you've heard of the Power Platform, but it's a kind of a stable of products that Microsoft have developed to complement each other. We'll talk about the Power Platform in a bit more detail, but so we're seeing a demand from our clients in the Power Platform, Power Apps, which is application development that integrates with Power BI, and around automation, so notification, stuff like that. And we'll get into an example. So we'll do a demo of the kind of stuff we're doing, but also some examples of clients we've worked with and what we've delivered for them. So that move into the Power Platform really necessitated a reorganization for us. So we had teams that were focused on Power Platform work under our Microsoft team and Power BI work under our BI team. So at the beginning of this year, we've merged those teams. So we've got a team that can service clients across all of those offerings, and we're seeing growth in that area. People who want to do stuff with information they receive in reports, basically. And we see that as the big growth area for the next period. And we're hearing from our clients that that's stuff they're considering. So our legal applications team, as I said, our focus is really on the Power BI, Microsoft Power Platform, which includes the Power BI solution. There are complementary solutions that are bundled with Power BI, so they're developed in the same way, so they can work closely together. So we've got Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agents. And just to give you a practical example of what those things do, if you don't know what they do. So you could have a Power BI report with a Power App embedded in it, and we'll show you how we've done that through a demo. And that Power App will enable you to trigger action in other systems. So the application could take, for example, using a billing process as an example. You could see bills that have been generated that you need to authorize as a timekeeper in Power BI. In Power Apps, you could take one of those bills and authorize it and pass action to the underlying PMS. So it could be 3E, and you could step through the processes from the Power BI report directly, so that you don't need to ask your timekeepers to log into the underlying systems. So that's the whole benefit of using these products, is that you can pull strings, flick switches, however you want to refer to it, in underlying systems that you've got in the firm that you don't necessarily want timekeepers to log into all the time, and you where they kind of are not best placed to carry out look at processes there. So you can have a timekeeper authorizing a pro forma from a Power BI report or a Power App rather than logging into 3E or Adherent or whatever practice management system you use. So we'll talk a lot about finance stuff on this call because we deal with a lot of our focus has been on financials, but over the last period where we've been asked to integrate into other systems, we're seeing a lot of demand for integration into risk systems, so INTAP, and we've carried out integrations into those systems. So as we talk about practical examples into the finance systems, you can kind of switch those finance systems out for any system. As long as we know how to interact with it, then we'd be able to configure our Power Apps, Power BI reports to enable action in those systems from outside of them. So ironically, you're kind of driving usage of those underlying systems by allowing timekeepers to not log into them. So we think that's where these products enable you to go. And we think that will be well received in the front office by timekeepers and enhance the perception of the support teams by allowing that. So key to all that stuff is connecting. If we're going to update those systems from Power BI reports or Power Apps, we need to know how to update those systems. But through our work with consulting and understanding through our partnerships with Elite and INTAP primarily, we understand how we need to update those systems in a way that's going to maintain system integrity. So probably you'll have people around the firm who can use Power Apps and Power BI. They may not be able to enable action in underlying systems and update those systems in the right way. So that's where Pinnacle have got we see that as our sweet spot. We understand the Microsoft applications because we've got a Microsoft team who specialize in Microsoft technologies, but we also understand 3E, INTAP, and a lot of the other firm-wide systems that you're working in. So we can kind of make that connection between the two systems. We're also seeing a pickup in demand for services related to integrations into cloud. So obviously, most people are looking at cloud technologies or are already well down the path of moving to the cloud for various functions. And we are seeing a demand for integrations in the cloud that allow, again, systems to be updated in the right way. So Dataverse, Data Factory, Data Lake, etc., and mechanisms for the data in those places to be able to talk to front office applications. So that's where we see the future growth, and that's what we're gearing up for, basically. So Sam, do you want to talk about market trends?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay, guys. So just touching on market trends and recurring themes that we're seeing at clients that are now coming into our conversations. So I don't think it will be any surprise to people on the call that the adoption of the Microsoft Power Platform is growing quite rapidly, especially in the last kind of 3 years or so, and even in the last year, we've kind of seen a bit of a shift of clients originally just focusing on Power BI, so they'd have Power BI for at least some level of their financial reporting, but now they're starting to look out into Power Apps and Power Automate, and then even some clients now looking to talk to us on the virtual agents side as well. And what we're kind of finding is that probably because there's more accessibility around the Power Platform. There's lots of content out there already. Microsoft are pushing it quite a lot. There's also now, because of those other apps that you have with the Power Platform, not just kind of Power BI, it's not just financial. There's other areas of the business that can now get involved with it. And that's, again, we're seeing conversations around risk and HR and marketing and how we can bring that information into the Power BI platform. And then also, how can we use Power Apps and Power Automate to facilitate types of processes around that. So just moving on to kind of the reoccurring themes that we're seeing at clients. So when we have conversations with clients, these are kind of the three main areas that we see coming up. So one of them's around notifications and reminders. So there's lots of notifications being sent around law firms on a daily basis. Lots of different types. So some emails, some teams, you've got separate systems around the firm all sending out different notifications. And I think law firms are starting to look for a way to kind of centralize that, a bit more management around it, how those are sent out, who they're sent to. And that's really where, Power Automate comes into play in the Power Platform. Another area is around actioning data. So there's lots of clients who are, maybe an example is moving from Excel into Power BI, and maybe they've got things like budgets and targets that exist offline in Excel, and they've been pulling them here and there, and being able to create say a Power App to store that type of information, and then be able to use Power Automate to move that into maybe a data warehouse or wherever you're storing your data, to then be able to surface in Power BI and then make actions off the back of that. Those are the types of conversations that we're having with clients at the moment. Just trying to kind of reduce any offline information, start to have a bit more kind of control over it, and then also within those systems start to interact with systems like the PMS and other kind of legal tech, which really comes on to the next item around integrations and APIs. Very kind of key conversation that we're having at the moment with lots of clients who are going to the cloud, and how those integrations work in the cloud, what are the APIs, what you can and can't do in that area. And again, we're having lots of conversations with clients around their other systems in different areas of the business. So HR, marketing, how we can leverage those APIs, how can we use, say you've got a new business intake process, how do we work with that type of integration through the PMS system, through HR, through marketing? Are there ways to use the Power Platform to connect those systems up so it's a seamless process? So just kind of moving on to a couple of examples and a couple of benefits of that. So a couple of examples around notifications. So things like new matters. So when new matters are coming to the firm, you could set something up that would let the matter manager know in Teams. You could say create a Teams group for that matter where people could discuss those types of things. You could go back to emailing and Outlook. All of those things can be triggered as part of Power Automate. Client receipts, financial reports, again, lots of firms still send things around as PDFs. You could potentially have dashboards embedded in Teams that people could access through there. You could send links through Power Automate. So there's lots of use cases around all of these items. Benefits, kind of increase awareness. So that, again, if we start to talk to clients about bringing things into Teams, lots of things get lost in emails, and you have to kind of scroll through lots of emails to find any historical information you need. So if you can have that in Teams, in a Teams group specific to certain areas of the business or clients or matters, that really helps them. Again, with work prioritization, same type of thing. And then centralized management of notifications. So coming back to my point at the start around, you've got lots of notifications going around. Is there any way that we can centralize that, understand what is being sent to people on a daily basis, how much is being sent? Because we want to kind of reduce the spamming of end users at the end of it. Actioning data. So we will run through some examples of these that we've done at clients already, but performer creation, billing approvals, budgeting, matter management, anything that has an API in your kind of source PMS system or any other legal tech systems, you can leverage that in the Power Platform, in whether it's Teams or through a Power App or Power BI. So really trying to kind of bring that together. Types of benefits, streamlining your processes, a lot more kind of overview of what processes are going on around the firm, enhance your user experience and less training and upskill. It means that you don't necessarily have to have users going into several different systems to interact with those systems. You can have them interacting with all of those from Teams, and that is one of the use cases that we've got coming up that we'll run through, where law firms have wanted to go down that route, keep it centralized. And then finally, integrations, touching on all of your kind of business critical systems. So all of these have information that you want to kind of send around the business or people have access around the business. So being able to integrate all of those through APIs, through Power Automate, that's one of the key things that we're starting to talk to clients about. Okay, so moving on. So just a couple of demos that we'll run through. These are things that we've done at clients, and then we've kind of brought back in-house for kind of demo purposes. So what I'll do is I will share my other screen, 2 moments.
Thanks, Sam. So I'm going to run through this demo with you. So as Sam said, this is a demo pack. So it's kind of, we've developed it for demonstration in-house. It's not every element of it works, but the point is that we're giving you an idea of the kind of things we're doing for clients. So we started off in the dashboarding world, so hopefully these dashboards look reasonably attractive and intuitive, and these are the kind of BI dashboards that we're deploying to users. So along the top they'll have some tiles which will take them to different areas that relate to their role from a data point of view, so they can look at how they can manage billing or inventory, time, which we'll come back to in a minute. What we've added and what we've learned over time from a dashboarding point of view is try and put less on the dashboard, because sometimes when we go through projects, there's a tendency for the project team to ask for everything to be added to the dashboard, and it just makes it complicated for the end user. And what the end user does, they just focus on the sort of 10% of the dashboard that they use, and they go to that every day and look at that, and they ignore all the other stuff. So we try and make them as simple as possible. Some of this stuff on here is probably too complex for certain users at law firms, but it's just to give you a general feel of the type of thing that we're developing. What's new here is, so you've got information in the first 4 tabs, and then you've got a notification bell on the right-hand side here. So if I click on that, what I'm seeing here is some notifications to tell me that I've got to do some stuff in systems. So if you click on one of the workflow requests, you'll see what we've got here is a Power BI report, which is showing information relating to that user, focused on that user from a financial data point of view. But as I said, it could be any data. It doesn't have to be financial. It's just the example we know best, to be honest. And then the examples we work with, have worked with most recently. And if you click on the number 4 on the left, Sam, just to demonstrate that you can interact with the Power BI visual, and it will impact the wider dashboard, including the Power App, which is on the right. So from a technical point of view, these 2 elements, where it says active workflows and where it says active workflows by a client, are separate. One's a report and one's a Power App. The user doesn't know that, and they don't need to see it. The point is that we're enabling the user to take action in an underlying system, a third-party system. So in this case, it might be 3E or Adherent, but we're enabling that from a place that is kind of, from a user experience point of view, is strong, and not confusing to use. So they can see that they've got some active workflows on the right that are pending. And if they want to look at the first one, which is a draft bill approval, they can click on it. And they can see some steps in the approval process to see that illustrate where they are in the process and what actions they can carry out. So they could look at the PDF, which is the bill attachment. On our system. It's just some text, example text, but we could retrieve a bill document or a pro forma document from your actual PMS to enable the user to look at the invoice. And if you go back, and we could enable the user to make comments at the bottom and either approve the bill or return it with conditions. The point here is what we don't want to do with this application layer with the Power Platform is to include a lot of logic, a lot of business logic that sits in underlying systems. We want the business logic that those systems maintain to stay in those systems. So because we know how, we can kind of export the workflow logic to the visualization, but it all sits in the underlying system. So if you've developed billing workflows in 3E or client matter inception processes in INTAP, then we can tap into those systems and represent where you are at the different stage in those workflow without embedding a lot of different complex logic in the reporting layer. So we're just representing what's going on in the underlying system. So from here, from a timekeeper point of view, I can carry out some action, and that action will be reflected in the underlying system, and the user is done with their authorization process. If we had to do the same, but we wanted them to log into a PMS, it would take a lot longer because they're potentially more complicated systems. They're alien to the user for a large part of the month usually. But here they can just click on a few buttons and get stuff done in those systems. So this is an example of a Power App, which is leveraging 3E information to enable the user to carry out action in 3E from reporting. If we could go to time. So on this tab, we've got a breakdown. It's a fairly busy screen. It's a management screen. And it's a breakdown of what's going on in my team for the year to date, by the looks of it. On here, a client recently asked us if we could allow them to project out into the future. So what we did was we created a flow, what's called a flow, and the user can go to Planner and they can say, okay, for this week, I'm working on particular matters, and they can drop down on the matter and select one or search for one, and then they can put the amount of hours that they predict. Obviously this stuff's in the past, but it could be in the future. So it's just our demo systems in the past, but they could predict out in the future and say, I'm working on this client for 8 hours, this client for 20 hours, etc., etc. And they can submit those projected hours, and they sit in a database that could be surfaced from anywhere. And management can get an idea of, so either management can get an idea of what the timekeeper thinks they'll be doing, or they can assign work from a projections point of view to those timekeepers, so they can see that everyone's busy going out into the future. Sometimes a lot of that stuff's invisible until you get to it. So you might look a week later to see, quite often in reports, a week later and see how busy people were. And you can see that there's gaps in utilization, but it's all kind of rear view mirror. What this allows you to do is project out into the future. So this stuff's always been possible, obviously, but the usually it would be on Excel spreadsheets or exchanging emails. What the Power Platform enables you to do is to make it possible in a more seamless way, in a more managed way. And I think there's use cases for the Power Platform, as Sam was saying, across a range of different systems that law firms use. And another one would be where we've developed some solutions for clients in sort of management of information that they would sometimes maintain in Excel. No, I mean, no one likes that. the IT department don't like finance maintaining important information offline in Excel. And what we've done is developed for a number of clients Excel spreadsheet type Power Apps that allow those that data to be maintained in a more robust and manageable way in a Power App on a system, so everyone's happy about that. Finance team can do what they want. Obviously, it's not in Excel, but it's in an Excel type experience, and IT are comfortable that the data's online and managed. So lots of different use cases for this, and there'll be many more that we'll come across, no doubt, through our work with clients.
Okay, thanks, Michael. I'll have a run through a couple of other examples, guys. Let me stop sharing my screen. I'll share a different screen. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see this. So this was something that we were working on with the client, and they wanted some way to interact with. They had 3E. They wanted a way to interact with 3E through Teams. So we created a virtual agent in Teams that allowed them to do a number of things. In this one, we've got what you can do is you can use natural language in here, but I'm just going to use this example. You can type into the Teams chat, and what it will do is it will go away. So here I've typed matter whip for this matter, but I could type find me the matter whip for this matter. What's the matter whip for this matter? So it works with natural language. And what it will do is it will query 3E directly, and it will bring back the time cards in this example on this matter. You can see what time cards are on there. You can see, narrative hours. Now, all of these that we've created, so these are what they call adaptive cards in Teams. All of these can be modified to show any type of information that we are bringing back through that API or can access. You can show and format in these. So this is just an example, but you could have any type of information here. And what the client could do is once they got this back, they could select individual time entries that they wanted to bill. They would click bill, and what it does is it generates a performer in 3E. And in their case, it went to a centralized billing team. So it would create a billing guide on their, or a performer on their action list. And then they would know that they would need to continue on with that. But this is just one of the examples of things that you can do in Teams. There's another one I'll show as well that we've been working on with clients. Let me share my other screen. So this was another one very similar. We'd worked with the client who has Pitch Perfect, and they wanted a way to use Teams to query their pitch information and really start to get information back that is relevant for their pitch and make it easier to build those pitches. So what we've done is we've trained this on the Pitch Perfect database. So what you can do is you can search, again, natural language, typed in here, find me partners in construction. And what it will do is it will go away and it will find you a list of your partners that exist in the Pitch Perfect database and list them out here. You can edit those. So I can take Philippa Wood, I can click on this and I can bring up her bio. I can edit it from here. I can say generate a CV if I needed that for a pitch. I can also create bios in here if I wanted to add a new one. And with this at the client, we haven't got it in here, but you can also query their PMS system. So you can bring back relevant information for pitches. So you can bring back, say, client and matter agreed rates. You can bring back searches on, say, please show me the billings for this client over the last 6 months. All of those can be formatted how the user wants in the adaptive cards in Teams, but it was really just a way for users to be able to get easy access to information that then they could build up their pitches for. We're also talking to another client around potentially using this for their knowledge articles. So that's an area where, again, you've got lots of timekeepers and fee earners who are putting information into those knowledge articles, but it's not necessarily stored in the easiest way to be able to find what you want from those. So if you could point Visual Agent at all those knowledge articles and train it on that, then the users could come into here. They could use natural language to search for whatever they want. So I'm sure you guys have seen ChatGPT. You can use that type of language to find that information from the knowledge article. So they're not kind of going through lots of different documents to find what they're looking for. Okay, so I'll stop sharing that, and I'll come back to presentation. Okay, so hopefully, guys, you can see that. These are just the examples that we've run through. So just touching briefly on some specific use cases. So these are projects that we've done recently with clients. So one of them was a large international law firm, so 3,000 plus timekeepers, and they have a number of different systems. Got a lot of offices around the world. They have a number of different systems that they need people to interact with. One of them being the PMS system, and they didn't necessarily want their end users accessing that PMS system directly. They found it a little bit complicated. They didn't want to do kind of additional training on it. So they approached us. We had an existing relationship with them, and they knew that we did certain things in the Power BI space, but they became aware we were doing them in the Power Platform space. And what we did was we created a Power App for them that they could send to those end users. Power App that was embedded in a Power BI report that could be sent out to those end users. So as a complementary to their reporting, and they could make a number of different modifications and changes to the PMS system through those APIs. So we've listed a number of the items that we'd set up for them to be able to access and use and query. And I'm sure there will be more that we will do with this client in the future, new items that we can do on the API side, but this was on the ones that we did recently. Another two use cases. So the first one, again, a large law firm, 1,400 timekeepers. So we had done an EDI project for this client, and one of the things that we knew they were doing was storing their general ledger information, general ledger journal information offline in Excel documents. And essentially, when they were coming to do their management accounts, all of that was done offline. And there was only certain things that they could do in Power BI, because everything that they needed was offline in Excel. So what we did was we created a Power App to allow them to add those general journals into that Power App and store them in a table in the data warehouse. And now they are looking to start reporting things like management accounts in Power BI, and they can also kind of use those journals in any other types of reporting that they're doing around the firm that need that kind of general ledger or profit level information. And then the final one, medium-sized law firm. So they were moving from an old Elite system to a new Elite system, and they didn't necessarily have anything in the new Elite system that would do their notifications around reporting. So they approached us as we had worked on an EDI project for them. And what we did was we looked at what they initially had and what they were doing on the reporting side, how that worked with EDI and some of the reports that we created. And then we used Power Automate and We used Power Automate originally to create that notification process, and then we worked with them to add a UI on top of that, a Power Apps UI, which allowed them to kind of schedule those so they could select the reports they wanted, who they wanted them to go to, when they wanted them to send. Really, like as you guys have seen, kind of setting up a meeting and how you do scheduling on there. Really a UI to do things like that. Okay, so moving on, I think Michael, you're going to talk about what we're looking at next.
Yeah, so what we're looking to do is to continue to work with clients and build out the use cases. We would like to involve clients more in what we do. So we want to kind of shape anything we do around what clients actually need. So we'll find ourselves working more closely with clients and inviting clients to work with us to provide ideas. So that's where we'll align more with the client base there. As clients develop more Power Apps and into these technologies, basically, we think there'll be a need for support from Pinnacle to help maintain and support the solutions going forward. We think a lot of the hesitance to kind of get involved in this stuff is around not understanding the product and solution, and if we can provide managed services that help clients to get some comfort that they've got in-house resources who can deal with stuff up to a certain point and will kind of support them as and when they need, then we think that will be a growth area too. So we'll provide sources, we'll provide resources on the managed services side, and we see that expanding. It's become a very popular offering in the last few years. One thing for clients who are thinking about going into this area, so licensing strategy. Quite often we work with clients and they haven't got any Power Apps, or they haven't got any licenses in this area, and they need to go to Microsoft and have a discussion. And usually the big negotiations on price and licensing are around the enterprise renewal, the time that's done. So if any clients are going into an enterprise renewal negotiation with Microsoft, they should consider mentioning that they're interested in Power Platform, and it might be the case that Microsoft can make some accommodation for the future use of licensing whilst you're in those discussions. So we've actually spoken to Microsoft about this, and they suggest that clients do that, that they tell them in advance that they're interested in it. Even if you're not there yet, it might be that Microsoft can make some provision in licensing that'll enable you to take up the solutions a bit more easily as you do start to step into them.